There are certain nights that stay with you. Narration too. Because you want them to, but because no matter how much logic you apply, no matter how many times you replay them in your head, they refuse to make sense. What I'm about to tell you spans several years of my life. I've tried to rationalize every part of it. I've tried to dismiss it. But there are details I can't explain away. And that's what bothers me the most. Highway 101, Northern California. It was 2022. I was living in the Bay Area at the time, Oakland specifically, and I had driven up to visit my parents in Eureka for the weekend. If you've never driven Highway 101 along the Northern California coast, it's beautiful during the day. At night, it's something else entirely. Long stretches with no other cars, no cell service, barely any lights, just winding road and endless dark. It feels isolated. But a first home. That's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. I left my parents' place around 8 p.m. on a Sunday. In hindsight, that was stupid. I should have stayed the night and driven back Monday morning, but I had an early shift and figured I'd rather just get the over with. Famous last words. The first couple hours were fine. Eventually the highway narrowed into a 2-lane road, which is how most of rural 101 is once you get north of the bay. Somewhere around Trinidad, the fog started rolling in. Fog isn't unusual on that coast. But this wasn't normal. Within 5 minutes, visibility went from clear to barely 20 feet in front of my car. It was worse than I'm describing. I slowed down to about 35 and kept going. The smart thing would have been to pull off and wait it out. But there aren't many places to stop along that stretch. And honestly, I just wanted to get home. Here's the thing about fog that thick. It messes with your sense of space. You lose landmarks. You can't tell how far you've gone. Everything feels disorienting. especially when you're tired. After about 30 minutes of white, knuckling the wheel, I saw a figure on the side of the road. At first, it was just a shape in the haze. Then, I realized it was a person. A man, based on height on the shoulder. He was standing on the shoulder, facing the road. He wasn't waving for help, wasn't walking, wasn't on the phone, just standing there. I slowed down, even more as I passed him. Might step into the road. He didn't move. He didn't even turn his head. I got a good look at his face as I drove by. Nothing unusual, but something about it felt wrong. There hadn't been any broken down cars. No reason for him to be standing there. For a split second, I considered turning around to see if he needed help. But I didn't. I kept driving. About 10 minutes later, I saw him again. Same build, same dark clothes, same stance. Only this time, he was on the left side of the road. There were no cross streets. No shortcuts. No way. He could have gotten ahead of me. I actually said, "What the hell?" out loud. As I passed him again, he locked eyes with me, and this time, his head snapped toward mine as we made eye contact. I instantly regretted looking. I sped up, not too fast, because of the fog, but enough to put distance between us. The fog got even thicker. I slowed again. And then, 3 minutes later, my headlights revealed someone standing directly in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes. He wore a hood this time. I couldn't see his face, but I knew it was him. He didn't move. I flashed my brights. Nothing. I put the car in reverse, and when I looked in the rearview mirror, my heart nearly stopped. There was someone behind me, walking toward my car. I shouted and threw the car into drive. I was boxed in. I didn't care. I swerved into the opposite lane to get around the man in front. He didn't react. As I cleared him, something slammed into the back of my car. Violently. The entire rear end jolted. Metal crunched. I thought I'd been rear-ended. But when I looked in the mirror, there was nothing there. No car. No car. No people. Nothing. I didn't stop. I drove as fast as I safely could until I reached the 101 interchange, where the fog finally thinned. And as my heart rate slowed, I convinced myself I had hallucinated it. 4 hours of driving, exhaustion, thick fog. It made sense. Until I got home and walked to the back of my car. The rear bumper was destroyed. A massive dent across nearly the entire width. There was no paint transfer. No sign of another vehicle. I called the police just to report it. Over the years, I've settled on the explanation that I hallucinated the figures and hit a grail or mile marker in my panic. But here's what I struggle with. How could I hallucinate one thing? So, while physically experiencing the other, the damage was real. And sometimes, I wonder if something else was on that road that night. The woods. Fast forward to this past spring break. I'm a senior in college now. I went home for the week. There's nothing to do there. No nightlife. No bars. None of my friends had the same break schedule. I decided I'd use the week to reset. Work out every day. Lift in the mornings. Run in the afternoons. One Tuesday, around 5 p.m., I went for a run on a loop I've done hundreds of times. 3 miles. Through my neighborhood. Then into a wooded trail. Then back out near my house. I know it by heart. The moment I stepped outside, I noticed the fog. Thick, unnatural, almost fake. Looking like a video game rendering distance. I considered skipping the run. But the trail is straight. No forks. You can't get lost. So I went. Everything was normal until about 5 miles in. At that point, I should have been near the exit. Instead, I was still deep in the woods. I checked my watch. 3 miles. I should have been home. But I wasn't. I stopped. tried to rationalize it. Maybe GPS interference. When I looked again, the mileage was increasing, even though I was standing still. That's when I turned around. The fog was worse. After about a mile of running back, I heard something, a sound I've never heard before. Low, droning, like a human siren. It swelled and dipped. It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't pain. It was just wrong. I ran faster. It matched my speed. Every time I looked back, there was only fog. Finally, I burst out of the woods and onto the street. I turned around, and there it was, standing in the middle of the trail, a dark silhouette, at least 7 feet tall, gently swaying. The sound had stopped. I ran home without looking back. I told my parents. They said it was probably just a tall person trying to scare me. But that doesn't explain the sound, or how it kept pace with me, or how tall it really was. I don't know what was in those woods that day, and I don't think I want to. Willapa Bay. This last one happened 6 years ago. My friend Edwin and I finally planned a kayaking trip to Willapa Bay in Washington. We weren't amateurs. We knew what we were doing. The fog was thick when we launched. We expected it to burn off. About an hour in, we heard rowing, not paddling. Oars. Somewhere off to our right. We called out. No response. The rowing continued at a steady rhythm. For 20 minutes, the sound stayed the same distance away. Not closer. Not farther. We changed direction. For a brief moment, the fog thinned. I saw a small wooden rowboat. Someone sitting at the oars. Then, the fog swallowed it again. Eventually, the fog began lifting. The rowing stopped. There was no boat anywhere. We paddled hard for shore. When we landed, we found wet, barefoot footprints coming out of the water. They led along the beach, then into the woods. We followed them downshore and found the rowboat pulled up onto the sand, oars resting inside, Edwin grabbed my arm. We left. Whoever had been in that boat would have had to reach shore before us, walk to the exact spot we landed, and disappear into the trees, all in thick fog. We never figured it out. And honestly, after this, I try not to think about any of it. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder, were these isolated incidents coincidences, exhaustion, or was something following me through the fog all those years? Something that never needed to be seen clearly. To be there. There.